Spacebands, fascinating business. We've helped or tried to support you during the last 12 months through Notwics and all the advisory work we do, and I really enjoyed working with you. And I suppose starting point for the audience is, I think you created this business from scratch in sort of early part of last year as a reaction to COVID, and it's gone on leaps and bounds from what I understand. So over to you to sort of fill people in for starters, Ronan, and maybe it's always good if you can give a bit of background on yourself, because I don't think this is your first foray into tech. You've had a few dalliances for Spaceband, so it'd be good to hear what those are.
Sure. Yeah, by all means. So I'm Ronan, one of the co-founders at Spacebands. I run the business with my best friend Harry. We're childhood school friends who both had a foundation in business despite our young age. I'm 26, Harry's the same. Prior to Spacebands, I ran 2 mobile app businesses. The first one was an alarm clock. When you press snooze, you give money to charity. The second one was a gym routine planner. It tracked your phone's location to your gym routine. If your phone wasn't at the gym when you said it would give money to charity. Following that, I run a marketing agency. I run another physical products brand, and have helped various businesses in the past with their marketing as a consultancy basis.
Okay, just I'll stop you there, Ronan, because that's quite a lot at a very young age. So when did you start doing all these? Were you kind of sort of 12 or something? Because
I'd always had an interest in business. I was the guy who was buying and selling phones at 16, fixing the screens and selling them for more, or collecting things, selling them, or like I would never buy myself a t-shirt unless I sold the t-shirt I was wearing.
Okay, I get it. You were the geezer in the playground.
that was Harry. I wasn't quite the geezer. I was the accomplice for Harry in his sweet empire. But yeah, I always had an active engagement.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, so it was always like an active passion of mine, I guess, if you like. I had somewhat set the foundations to have my own business from a young age, because I had imagined that was all that I wanted to do, if you like. Fortunately, my lifestyle pre-Spacebands even played into that quite nicely. I spent the last 7 years traveling the world. I'd be in the UK for 3 months of the year and be abroad for 9 months, and work essentially from my laptop wherever I was. I've lived in Japan, China, Indonesia, and I've visited probably about 100 countries by now.
True digital nomad, I would say.
Yeah, one of those millennials.
Unfortunately, I think I missed you. I should have been born in your generation, because that's how I would have liked to have spent my life. Although I did have a good stint when I was at university, pretty much avoiding doing any studying and just DJing a lot. And so I managed to scrape through. I think when I woke up one morning and went to do my finals after many nights in nightclubs around the Southampton and Bournemouth region. Anyhow, less of me, back to you. So just on those 2 businesses that you did create, are they sold, gone, still? Are you still tinkering with them? There's still revenues coming in? What
so happens? The mobile apps are both sold to private buyers. I sort of let go of those when my passion for them disappeared, I guess, if you like. It wasn't a case that the businesses were particularly growing at a massive rate. It was more that I had run out of steam with them. I'd been pushing them for a certain amount of time, and they were still valuable, so I sold them on. Pre-Spacebands, I was working, as I said, in marketing. I was just a consultant for various people, all freelance. And I've been building out another physical product, which I have not yet released, but it's in the pipeline. But that is sort of the foundations for that business were coming pre-Spacebands. Okay. Spacebands came alive when Harry sent me a text one morning, sat in my bed with, "Hey, I think we need to do this one together. I've got a really good idea." And then here we are today.
All right. So hold that thought, because I would assume with you being able to build these businesses, were you self-taught in coding, or how did the sort of how did this all kind of come about?
No, so I did a TED talk a few years ago and spoke about this very topic. So the foundations of all my ideas didn't come from having the skills to do them. It was more that I backed myself to do them and had the time to invest in the project. So the mobile apps I built with no coding experience. I hired developers, I hired people to help with marketing, graphic designers, and just backed the idea more than anything else until it worked out. Similarly with Spacebands, it was Harry and I just believing that the product had a use case, believing there was a market for it, and just taking risks time and time again and putting the trust in ourselves and our friendship to build it to what it is today.
There you go. Following Warren Buffett's advice, always invest in yourself.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think it's his big Berkshire Hathaway thing tomorrow, actually, isn't it? I believe so.
I think
online for the first time ever. Anyhow, well, that's pretty fascinating, and I suppose if we do move the dial to Spacebands, if people are wondering, okay, what is a Spaceband, and what does it do, and why did you build it, I suppose is a good entree.
Cool. So Spaceband is a social distancing device that also stores contact tracing information. We're the most affordable solution on the market at the moment, and our customers include the likes of the NHS, the MOD, Sony, Panasonic, Travis Perkins. I mean, the list goes on. We've got 1,000 odd customers at the moment. The business is entirely self-funded to date. We ran our own personal savings to zero in the early days of the business and just kept taking risks time and time again until the business became profitable. We're still completely self-funded to date, but have turned the revenue of 450,000. We were completely bootstrapped at the beginning, in that everything was done as lean as possible. We would really worry about spending £100 on ads because the bank account was at zero, and then now things have changed, but it really was a business that was built from nothing, out of our own pocket.
Wow. And do you have a Spaceband there in
Good question.
Or...
No, I don't, but my trusty sidekick, who is currently working away, may well pass me one.
Now, there you go.
There you go.
Okay.
That's handy.
Closer. There you go. So that's the Spaceband, and in essence, so these devices, so if I was Sony, I would put an order. I buy a Spaceband because I want my employees to have one, and so when they're in the work environment, they are utilizing the benefits of Spaceband. Is that kind of how I'm thinking? If you
abiding by all the social distancing regulations, right?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, Spaceband's use case for the most part is employers buying it for their employees to keep their employees safe while they're in the workplace. Employers have a responsibility to be doing all that they can at this time during the pandemic to keep employees safe. And Spacebands really are the best tool to do that. Staff start ignoring signs, tape, they ignore managers telling them to stay distant, and when the managers look away, they're not distant. Spacebands give that alert so that you don't have to be giving a reminder continuously. It's a polite beep that tells you, hey, come on, you're not quite at the right distance. The virus is still here. Stay at a safe distance. Then when people do break that interference and they come into contact, the device will store a record of that data so that if someone has a positive COVID-19 test, you can use that data to make effective decisions on who to self-isolate. And why do businesses care about doing this? We've had one use case of a customer who was making aeronautical parts. They have 16 employees, but they turn, I think it was like £16 million revenue a year. They were a big budget. Yeah. So his use case for us when he called me up was that he loved the product and was saying, hey, by keeping my staff in work for 2 weeks, that production line open, you're probably making me 200, 300K. Our product's £25, so it's a no-brainer for him to have spent 25 times 16 to keep his production line open for 2 weeks. I mean, that's a small-scale business. On the other side of it, a big business, the likes of Panasonic, may have to self-isolate 100 people on the flesh if someone has a positive case because everyone was working in the same room. But by using Spacebands, they can look through the data and say, actually, this person was only in contact with 8 of these people in those last few days. Therefore, I'm only isolating 8 and keeping the production line and that whole room open. So the business cost and opportunity cost of doing this is ridiculous, which is why I think we've had the success that we've had.
That's great. I suppose at the moment you see the news, which is I could see where you could fit into this with the whole semiconductor, the whole shortage that everyone's reporting on at the moment. The world
chip shortage, yeah,
yeah,
especially for automakers.
Yes, especially, but I would add that I should connect you into a company I know in Veldhoven called ASM Lithography, who you possibly may not have heard them, but they are the world's largest producers of the machines, so lithography machines that make the chips. So you have these big, huge buildings and huge devices, which are, I think, when I was covering them at Bloomberg and Morgan Stanley, they were, I think when I left Bloomberg, they were at 60 or 70 million euros to build one of these things. I think it's maybe even double that now, but they obviously etch, they create the wafers that obviously all of the Texas Instruments and all the different. So, and I just remember their factory being exactly that. It was each, when I used to take investors to site visits and you put in all the, the garb, you'd have to have no dust on you. And each of the machines and the different bits of the machines were being built in different units of the, in different rooms. So effectively, I don't know what the situation is in Holland at the moment with COVID. I imagine you don't really hear about COVID unless it's really bad, do you? So it's kind of like, it's India's turn this week, and which is very sad, obviously. But I haven't heard much from Holland. But I mean, definitely, I could see exactly where your device would fit into a sort of industrial technology manufacturer that.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, for the most part.
Yeah, it doesn't want that breakdown in the supply chain or the food chain, which, because obviously we need to build more of these machines to build more chips at the moment that's Chris's commercial tip of the show. So,
and they're great because, for the most part, our customers at the moment are manufacturers, food producers, logistics companies, those companies that just can't stay put, they can't close during the pandemic. So moving forward, the tire market just opens up in a completely different way. Social distancing will be in play in various industries moving forward, whether that's for the pandemic we have now, or for variants coming out, or for the common flu in the winter months. People will socially distance just as a norm, if you like. Not that it's going to happen every single day, but businesses are preparing themselves for both now and the future by using technology like ours.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the next question is, does this as a product have that longevity of life really, or do you think as maybe pandemics go away, 3 years, 5 years? I'm curious, what would be the next iterations of Spacebands?
Yes, it's a very, very good question. It's come somewhat at the right time. This is all unreleased. Actually, the first time we've spoken about it publicly, but the whole business is taking a pivot at the moment. We're still staying within social distancing wearables, but we started development back in September of last year on product 2, which gives Spacebands a use case, not just for social distancing. The device prepares businesses for social distancing when they need to implement it on a daily basis, perhaps, but also has a use case day-to-day in the workplace for a variety of other features without having to use the social distancing at all. But when someone needs to use social distancing, for example, common flu's around in December, they can simply turn it on their watch in the same way you can turn on or off pedometer on your Apple Watch. So Spacebands are moving into a workplace safety space. We're looking at, I'm not sure I can quite disclose the features just yet, but we're looking at a device which has 16 features, which all work in various sectors, which can be turned off and on as per the workplace desire, while still having this social distancing rhetoric behind the whole product, because we are one of the market leaders in that space at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this a growing market then?
Oh, completely. I mean, Harvard University said themselves back at the beginning of our business that social distancing will be in play until at least 2023. That's still apparent today, regardless of the vaccine being rolled out here in the UK. We're one of the first countries to get this vaccine rollout at widespread, and even so, moving forward, it's not going to be a worldwide vaccine rollout until 2022 per se, and who's to know that another variant doesn't come out, or businesses won't want to be prepared for the sake of insurance and so on for other pandemics and other viruses and other viral infections that will come about.
Yeah, I mean, in loads of places in the world, you get Ebola outbreaks all the time, or even the bubonic plague is still around in a few countries around the world. I mean, so having something like that, but then plus 16 other features for workplace safety, I think is a great thing to have.
Sure. And I mean, we've had use cases of cruise ships being held in dock for months and months for Neurovirus. That's a viral infection. Like, our technology can stop that from spreading across the ship, therefore saving cruise liners millions of pounds when they're being docked and can't be housing visitors.
Neurovirus is usually food poisoning, right? That's like the layman term of it.
It spreads though.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's what most people think of when they think of neurovirus is, oh, I got food poisoning, right? Yeah.
So in essence, if any cruise liners or cruise companies are listening or watching, essentially Spacebands could be that. As you go on board, you get given your Spaceband, and that could be, it's an extra layer of protection, I suppose, against neuroviruses or COVID whilst you're on that particular cruise, because obviously, as we well know, travel has been decimated as an industry, and I think as more people look to, go to those countries that are on, is it the green list, I believe, or cruise to the green list countries, that would be a really good commercial opportunity.
Sure.
I think cruises are restarting in May, actually, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we're having those conversations already. We've already been speaking to companies in Greece who are looking to open up in May in a couple of weeks' time with using our product. Like, the Spacebands also have great spec in the likes of cruise liners, because we can group devices together. So if a family is coming on board, for example, and they're wearing Spacebands, you can put them in a bubble. Their devices won't alert or contact trace with each other, but if someone breaks that bubble, it contact traces. So it doesn't become annoyance when you're hanging out with your friends, because you could be in a bubble of 6, 10, 20, 30 people who are all people that you know and love and spend time with. But the second someone outside of that circle, be it a staff member or a guest, comes into play, there's contact tracing and there's social distancing that pops in and there's an alert. So it's almost a perfect use case for the product. We didn't quite scope it out, and we're building out Spacebands in the early days. But our reach out to this market has come as a result of organic traffic that's come to us and said, hey, look, your product's perfect for this sector. And therefore, they're soon becoming our target market.
Yeah. And I suppose are they hotels in Greece that have contacted you, or is it?
They're cruise liners directly, cruise companies.
Because I was thinking like hotels, nightclubs. I mean, nightclubs probably, lots of people get drunk, don't they? So perhaps
we've been used already at nightclub events. We've been used already inside nightclubs. We've also been used in the event space. We're using in TV production. ITV are using them in all their shows. Netflix are buying some. There's so many sectors for it. We're just touching the surface by saying our use case ideally is manufacturing. There's a variety of sectors we're selling into. It's not just a one-trick pony, if you like.
How are you keeping up on the production or manufacture of the actual product itself? Is that proving to be challenging, with obviously having to China, the freight prices, how's that panned out?
No, I mean, we're completely set the scale. I think because we've had foundation in business before, we didn't look at it as a take orders, take supply, take orders, take supply. We were set the scale from the off. We have a variety of factories who can make our devices, who are all signed under our agreements. So it was set the scale. We could roll out 500 devices to the MOD tomorrow if they make that decision. We could roll out 10 devices to the shop down the road. We're set the scale. It's not really a problem. So we were looking at getting government contracts in the early days. So as a result, that was a question that would come up time and time again.
So Ronan, could you explain that a bit more? So you kind of have processes at different manufacturers. You can turn them on, turn them off, and they can build and deliver very quickly. Is that how people should think?
Yeah, sure. So we hold stock here in the UK, but we also have suppliers worldwide. We use one primary supplier, but we have a variety of other suppliers that we can go to as an overflow should we require it, because we were going after these high demand sectors. We were looking at, in the very, very early days, selling it to schools, which means overnight we could have had an order of 25 million or something just overnight. So we knew we needed to have a supply chain set for if that was to happen, and therefore we contacted all the right people, did our due diligence at the time to make sure that we were fine for scoping out something like that.
And I guess that's as well, those different manufacturers had different batch size minimums and that sort of thing, and that's why you can scale up on demand.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
And I mean, the same applies to the new product. The new product has lots of the same technology inside it as the original product. It's just a little bit more of a complex offering rather than just the simple social distancing alert with contact tracing. So the same use case and same business strategy applies.
And there's been no Brexit impact here, really?
Not really, to be perfectly honest. We're selling worldwide and have done from our early days. I mean, we've got customers in about 30 countries at this point in time, across 5 continents. We've had some shipping delays when we were in both ITV and BBC back in November of last year. Martin Lewis from the Money Saving Expert also spoke about us, all in the same week. And yes, as I was saying, we were set for scale, but we didn't quite see a demand surge like that. All of a sudden, the website was getting tens of thousands of visitors every hour. So
did the website crash, or did you manage to keep that up?
Didn't crash. Interesting website.
There you go. Website was built for scale as well.
yeah, exactly. But the reason I mentioned that is that I completely lost my train of thought here.
Martin Lewis and the shipping.
Sorry, yeah. So in that case, we had a 4-week delay for some of the orders that were coming out. But even so, 4-week delay for some businesses is manageable. It's only because our product is such an urgent use case that most people who are buying it because they've had a positive outbreak and realized they weren't prepared for it. So most people want their devices yesterday. Because we hold stock here in the UK, we always work on a next day service and pride ourselves in that for 99% of our orders. And as a result, we get a call. For example, we had a call from a TV production house last week who needed to buy 450 devices. They paid for them at 5 o'clock. They had them at 9 a.m. the next day.
Nice.
So we pride ourselves in that next day service, but the max delay we've had on orders has been about 4 weeks throughout the whole life cycle of the business.
I thought you were going to say that you experienced some delays during the Suez Canal, but it sounds like you managed to avoid that one.
we managed that.
Now, I remember originally when we first talked, both you and Harry telling me that the focus was more schools at that point, and I suppose you sort of just demand decreed that industry and manufacturers were more the right market than schools. I mean, what happened there? Did that marketplace you just thought it's not really building, let's just sell elsewhere?
Yeah, so it was a funny one. The reason Spacebands came to life in the first place was that we believed that the devices would help school children keep distance whilst not being too intrusive and too much of an annoyance for teachers having to tell kids to stay apart. Like, it sounds very Black Mirror, but that was the use case for the product in its first case. So we went down that whole route. We built the product in its current form. If you'll see on the website, all of our devices are colorful, they're bright, the logo is quite fun because the branding was around schools and going into schools. We wanted to make it Spacebands with a little space orbit logo because school kids would wear them and it wouldn't be quite as much of a struggle. But if the device was very techy and it didn't look fun and it wasn't in fun colors. But that being said, we tried to sell into these schools. We contacted Parliament, we contacted private schools. We had inquiries from the likes of Eton and Wellington College. But even at that top level, price was prohibitive. Our devices are the most affordable on the market. We're a third of the price of the nearest competitor. We're working as close to cost price as we can while still having a margin in it for us. But schools just could not afford to pay £25 a pupil or £25 a member of staff. With that being said, all of our ads we were running on distancing devices, contact tracing devices, and so on, we were getting traffic from manufacturers, food producers, logistics companies saying, hey, like, I can see your product. I want to buy this. Can I buy it for my use case? This is what we're doing with this factory, making this, this, and this. And then we realized that we were really onto something. And so overnight we pivoted. We changed the branding a little bit. It still has that same Spacebands, somewhat childlike feel, although that wasn't the intention really. But our focus now lies in B2B sales, and we completely somewhat left schools alone because it just didn't work out. We tested the market, we tried, we did our best, but with that, it was either going to be a case that we would get all 25,000 schools in the UK, or we would get none of them. So we dropped it and pivoted, and fortunately that paid off.
The mark of an experienced entrepreneur. Is the design going to change in version 2.0 with the extra features? So you're also doing a brand refresh and kind of to reflect your new customer market?
Sure, yeah, you're on the money completely. The device changes. It's actually a two-part device. I won't go into that in more detail, but there's two sections to it, if you like. It still follows the same key pillars of our brand, still simplicity, still affordability, and have I forgotten the third pillar? I've been building out the deck for the last few weeks. Simplicity.
Harry, what's the third pillar?
Harry's disappeared. He's had a customer call. He's run out of the room.
All right. When it comes to you, let us know. But I would say, there is a similarity and look and feel to this lovely device, and I'm curious because obviously I love great innovation, startups, brilliant people like you coming up, building, creating, and really taking the business as far as you can take it, and the technology as far as you can take it. That it necessitates the thought of, okay, a Spaceband or the technology could be quite novel for this type of thing going forward, you would assume. So I'm just leading you into the classic, would there be an exit potentially with this business, do you think, to a major
wearables tech company?
The words right out of my head. Interesting. So we've been drawing up our forecasts and stuff recently, but as for an exit at this point in time, yeah, it's not really worth commenting until we finalise the exact strategy we're going with. But on note of, say, implementing the technology inside a Apple Watch, for example, the use case doesn't really apply because the whole vision of Spacebands is that we don't track data on a personal level. There's a complete anonymity to the entire device. Devices will just tell you that device number 1 has been in contact with device number 2. It won't tell you that Chris has been in contact with Ronan or Anthony has been in contact with Chris. It just tells you device number 1 has been in contact with 2, device number 3 has been in contact with 1.
Yeah.
It's up to the company to decide if they want to log that Chris owns device number 1 and Ronan owns device number 2. And they can keep that all at their side without having us as a third party.
But either way, all those identities are siloed between the companies because they're not sharing to each other, etc.
Exactly.
If it was Apple, it would all be centralized.
Sure. So if you used it with Apple, it would know from the off that you had that device.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, staff won't wear the devices because staff don't want to have intrusion on their data. So therefore, that's why we keep winning time and time again when we go up against competition, because we have anonymity throughout the entire process, but yet the data is there so that you can make effective decisions for it. If you decide to just keep it simple Excel spreadsheet at your side to say that you own device number 1, I own device number 2, someone else owns device number 3. So the use case of being implemented inside something like a Samsung Watch and Apple Watch doesn't really apply. That being said, an exit where a company like that could take it over, still using that anonymity, it would work completely 100%. And we built the product as a product rather than a business built around myself and Harry's personalities, because inevitably the business has to have an exit at some point in time, or a partnership or something. But the product on it stands still on its own by having that, not the data-driven approach without using any sense of someone else's personal data. And the same applies for our future product. That was the third pillar of the brand. We know.
There you go. Full circle.
So yeah, I mean, we don't know what the future holds. We're going to go through a funding round very, very soon. So it's a great time to be in contact. We're looking at a raise of about 600k. We're fairly sure. But as for an exit at this point in time, we've talked about it, of course, but I can't lock something in because we're still finalizing numbers and strategy and exactly what we want the business to achieve in terms of goals, both short term and long term, and where we want to go with it. I mean, in the short term for the current business, we've already hired our first employee who's working with us now. We're looking to hire another 5 in the next few months. Yeah, we're looking at a revenue of about 8.6 mil in year 3. But yeah, these are all working numbers.
Wow. I suppose going, well, we may need to log back in a sec, but I think the next question for me would be what you've experienced with your work with the NHS, because there does seem to be a bit of a theme appearing when Anthony, Paolo and myself, we meet what would be termed health tech companies that apparently COVID has massively accelerated their adoption in the NHS or in other areas, and then you just dig beneath the surface and it kind of hasn't. And it's I think a lot of investors are finding, and I'm not really applying this to Spacebands, but it's more a point on the NHS that they've taken a lot of technologies on trial type bases and or bases. I can't say the word bases. It's almost like now, as the tide has gone back out, some of these founders, unfortunately, who are preaching, oh yeah, we've cracked the NHS, and you know, it was you know, not even a paid pilot with some of these companies.
It's not quite sticking.
Yeah, they've been left with their trousers down as the tide comes out. So just sort of, yeah, I think interested on NHS views. If we can maybe take it, carry on now.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to delve too much into it, but I'm happy to share some information, of course. But like our business strategy isn't based around getting those contracts and winning 1, 2, 3 of those contracts to be able to hit our revenue goals. They're effectively just another customer, if you like, of ours. It's not that that's our primary focus to get a use case like that. They are a paying customer of ours, but we're currently before a wide rollout. We're awaiting government guidance on people returning to offices because the device can't be used by clinical people, because it's a wearable device. Naturally, you can't wear a watch if you're a doctor because there's bacteria that collects around that watch.
Yeah, you're not taking Spacebands into the OR.
Yeah, exactly. But that being said, people are using them within hospitals and within different NHS sectors who aren't working in a clinical position. I'm not too sure quite how far I can delve into it, just for the sake of confidentiality on both our side and their side, and I wouldn't want to go against anything that was set in place. Harry's more the contact there than I am, but yeah, it's not like our whole business is built around contracts and we don't use that as a use case. We're like, oh, we're working with them and that's it. It's just for us.
Do you think there's a difference as well between being a hardware vendor and being a software vendor, which, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but most of the people that we've met with that fell into that bucket were more trying to sell software licenses rather than a hardware type of product that has a software component? Yeah,
no, that's true. I think I agree with you there, Anthony. Okay, but that's interesting what you said there, Ronan, because, you know, it's yeah, I think we're going to see probably in the second half, not obviously in the Spaceband story, but in other health tech businesses, there could be some casualties, unfortunately, from.
Sure, I think a lot of those businesses also centralize themselves around winning those contracts, and that's sort of the be all or end all. Whereas for us, like, yes, we'd love to supply the NHS. Yes, that's a fantastic contract. We're doing all that we can to win more and more of them. Yeah. We're not building the business around getting those, because then you're almost setting up to fail if just one person decides they don't like you.
Okay. For a man of such young years, you have had some great successes, and I suppose the area we always like to delve into on this podcast is the tips or the sharing of how you feel you've been able to achieve the goals that you've attained. So I suppose we could call it Ronan's top tips, but well, let's do that. And I just wondered what they'd be.
Okay. Good question. I think very early on, I learned that I didn't know everything, and I was content with the fact that I didn't know everything. I'm happy to tell people that I'm wrong or that I don't know how to do something, and that's played well for me. And the fact that I'm young also means that some people make that assumption before they even know that that's the case. So it's people will give advice or help with certain parts of the product that maybe other businesses, they wouldn't even ask if they wanted assistance in that field. Similarly, on a somewhat contradicting note, I back myself probably more than the next person does, which I don't mean to come across arrogant, but if I think something's a good idea, I put trust in the fact that I'm right in the fact that that's a good idea. But if someone tells me, hey, you might think that's a great idea, but that whole marketing strategy is wrong, I'm happy to pivot and change, which is why it works. And the reason I think Spacebands has been successful is that Harry and I share that same mentality. If anything, Harry probably backs himself more than I do. But if I tell Harry he's wrong, Harry admits he's wrong. If Harry tells me I'm wrong, he admits he's wrong. That plays into our fortune time and time again, albeit with customers who say that the device isn't working and it needs to have a better grouping feature, rather than us trying to tell them, oh, the grouping's perfect. We look at changing it. And it's happened with government guidance. It's happened. It's just really played into our advantage. Similarly, we ask for advice time and time again. We're on various consultancy programs with the likes of Business West, with the likes of the West England Growth Hub, because we've asked for help, where other people might decide that they just know how to do it because they've done it again. Like, I've been in business in various different sectors. I've helped different businesses with their marketing in various different sectors. But yet still, I'm a 25-year-old guy. I'm never 25, 26. I'm never going to know everything. So yeah, I think that's probably both the ability to back myself, but also the ability to tell people that I don't know.
Yeah, knowing when to push and when to take on new information and maybe make a change, I think is a key skill in business that a lot of people haven't perfected. So it's definitely a good thing to do at this young age.
I think my attitude to risk.
We could term that.
Oh, sorry, Chris. Yeah, go ahead.
We could term what you've just said as part of the founder's creed. I think it's step number one. I think the other thing that I've picked up through talking to you and today and in the past is that you're very much you have a great chemistry both as co-founders. Would you say that it's probably better for any founders out there to think about doing this with another person? Is it easier? Is it something you potentially always possibly suggest? Because it seems to me that most of the businesses that do really succeed are where there's two or maybe three founders, and a sole founder, it can be tough. And I'm just curious what your perspectives are there.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it's all about finding the right person for both skill set and personality. Also, we benefited because Harry had a footing in sales prior, so we haven't spoke much about Harry in this podcast, but Harry prior to this had a small startup based in food waste, and then he also worked for two different startups in FMCG goods, and just sort of knew how to build out a sales strategy. I didn't have that background because I had that operational and marketing background, also the software development, if we're going to really open up the can of worms. But those skills grew hand in hand, and the fact we've known each other for so long and had that trust before we stepped into business just meant that it worked out. I mean, similarly, we didn't realize our business was going to grow quite as quickly as it did. And just having someone to bounce off when it's 9 o'clock in the night and you're packing orders, it's like you just couldn't do it on your own. It's stressful enough as it is, but it's better when you come into work and someone makes a joke, although you're exhausted, because it just makes it all that much more manageable.
Now, if I'm right in this assumption, I believe you're based in Bristol, and I think the office is also your home, and you and Harry live in the same home as the same office. That's correct, is it?
That's correct. So
if I'm an investor, that is exactly what I want to hear, because that is so cost effective and a really, it shows you are so driven and so committed to this. For me, that's a big thumbs up. So any investors listening, there you go. So and then I suppose we're drawing towards the end of the show. Really enjoyed talking to you as always, Ronan. Living in this workspace stroke home space that you have currently, do you guys ever get away from Spacebands, or is it kind of do you relax, or do you what do you get up to?
Okay. Do we ever get away from Spacebands? We used to have a Spacebands jar in the kitchen that our girlfriends held us to. But oh yeah, we do. It's more now. The relaxing time's coming in than for sort of 4 or 5 months. It was 7 days a week, late nights all over the place. But now things are starting to slow down a little bit in the UK. We're starting to target international markets and starting to translate ads and websites and so on to move across the board and across the world with the product. But we do still relax, of course, but inevitably, given that we live together, the relaxing time is also spent together. So
can I also ask, you're hiring new people, is part of the job CV that you also have to move into one of the rooms in the
you're allocated sleeping bag A, you're allocated sleeping bag B.
It's just all in the office. It's one by one. We've got bunk beds set up in the corner. No, so we've already been approved for an office space in an accelerator in Bristol. It's the best performing accelerator in Europe.
Right.
We set that up because we. Say that again. Sorry.
Which one's that? Sorry.
Set Squared.
Oh yes, that's a good one. Yeah.
So we've already been approved on their program. We had to do interviews a couple of months ago, and have taken various training programs and stuff with them to sort of set a foundation so that we would get the approval. And on note of that, we have an office space that we can move into when we look to hire these 5 members of staff in the coming months. The guy who's working with us at the moment just comes and works from the home office. The home office from the at-home office.
But he goes home at the end of the day.
He goes home at the end of the day, exactly. End of the day being 4 a.m. after he's slept in his bunk bed for a few hours.
Yes. and recited the Spaceband.
The creed.
The Earth of Allegiance.
Brainwashed. Okay, and then one ending question that we have here, which is a bit nosy, and Anthony and I have made it our signature way of ending our podcast. Is
pop it on some bread.
It's more like, what are you watching on Netflix or any of the streaming shows? Are you kind of followers of anything in particular that?
Good question. I mean, as for free time, TV sort of disappeared from my life for a little while. I'm a big documentary head. If I'm ever going to watch TV, it's either documentaries or like nature shows. But yeah, I don't know if I have a series at the moment, to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of my time spent not doing Spacebands is spent learning about skills that will either develop the business or learning about other businesses in similar fields. So yeah, it makes me sound a bit sad as a young guy, but it's either spent socializing with friends or upskilling.
Yeah, that's a good enough answer. I mean, I just came to me that is it the lady at Set Squared? Is it Rosie that you're dealing with?
Good question. I haven't spoke to Rosie yet. Our contact is a guy called Jack, but I'm assuming there's multiple people. We haven't actually started there formally yet because we're still working at home, but we're looking to set up there sort of in the next month.
Okay, you're in good hands, because I think those. I was listening to the Silicon Gorge like cohort presentation yesterday that Rosie was a judge on, and yeah, really impressive. I mean, as Anthony knows, and I think some of the viewers know, we're big fans of the whole Bristol Southwest scene. Notwics has been supporting it for God, another 6-7 years, and some great companies, and you're in a great space. And
yeah, it's quite a big hub here. We were aware it was there, but for my previous businesses, we didn't need to go down the accelerator route.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of opening up a big can of worms by getting into that space. We've just been nominated as one of the top 5 new businesses in the city through the Bristol Light Business Awards. So we're hoping that's a win for the sake of PR in the coming months. It was actually but hopefully we'll win that one. And then that opens up the whole network.
Mean prizes basically, and
exactly
money. So, it's all part of the process of building that business moving forward. So well done. And look, I've really enjoyed catching up, Ronan. Anthony, I don't know if you've got any last burning questions for Ronan.
No, excited to hear more about Spacebands 2.0 when the new product is unveiled.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably coming very soon, to be honest. It's been a lot of work behind the scenes for the last 7-8 months whilst managing the current product, but it's almost ready for launch phase. We're about 2 months away from the product finishing development completely.
Let us know, and if there's a link to the website where we can feature it, let us know and we'll put it on the page with the podcast so that people listening to this, by the time it comes out, will be able to click and look.
Perfect. Yeah, I will do that.
Great. Have a lovely weekend. Enjoy the bank holiday.
Thank you.
Take some time out.
Yeah, settle down with a nice documentary.
See you later, mate. Take care. Thanks again.
Thank you both of you.